Alright, I'm sure that everyone in this room has had cheese at one point in their life. But have you ever wondered where cheese comes from or how it's made? Or where did the idea of cheese even come from? And the answer might surprise you. So now cheese is everywhere and in all different types of foods and is really quite delicious. But it's also very interesting. There are all sorts of different cheeses that are meant for different types of foods and different types of dishes. Cheeses are made around the world, and cheese comes from many different types of countries all around the world. There are also effects of eating cheese in your diet. There are some advantages to having it in your diet, and that also comes with many disadvantages. So you have to watch out for how much cheese you have in your diet. Cheese also has a very interesting history that we're going to dive into and answer some questions like, when was the first cheese made and where? Or who invented cheese? And we're going to find that out in just a little bit. So that brings me to my first point, where we will cover different types of cheeses and where they are and where they come from. So my first cheese is mozzarella cheese. When people think of mozzarella cheese, they might think of mozzarella sticks from Sonic. It's probably my go-to at Sonic. Never go wrong with that. It's an ooey gooey kind of cheese that's great in lasagna and all types of pizzas, and even in some salads. Something cool about mozzarella cheese is that it was made in Italy, and it comes from the milk of a water buffalo. That's a water buffalo right there. Because of the richness of its milk that it produces. Another great cheese is cheddar cheese. Cheddar is used for some of the most delicious foods like mac and cheese, and it can be used in a lot of different types of soups. Cheddar cheese is used for some quick snacks like cheese sticks and a lot of different other snacks. There are many different types of cheddar cheese, but two most common are sharp and mild cheddar cheese. So what's the difference? The only difference is the time that they're aged for. Mild cheese is aged from 2 to 3 months, while sharp cheese is aged for as long as a year. This gives the sharp cheddar cheese its name for giving it a sharper and more pronounced flavor to the cheese. So cheddar cheese comes from the land of England and in the village of Somerset. The caves in the region give the perfect humidity and steady temperatures for the maturing cheese. So this is the area surrounding Somerset in England, and you can't see the caves, but you can tell that it's really deep in there, and it'd be a nice environment for the cheese to develop, and you can tell that there's probably some caves in and around there. So my last cheese that I'm going to talk about is a fancy cheese called Parmigiano Reggiano. So the scary name is often referred to as a cheese we know as Parmesan cheese. So Parmesan cheese is a great cheese for topping dishes such as pasta and pizza, and as well as salads. That's Parmesan Reggiano right there. The cheese made in the Parma Reggio region of Italy takes a very long time to mature, taking a minimum of 12 months, and the best quality takes much longer, up to 20 years. There are so many, so this is where Parmesan Reggiano is stored. You can see there's a bunch of cheese there, and that's what it looks like whenever it's cut and shredded into the Parmesan cheese that we know today in our country. So there are so many other different types of cheeses that I would love to talk about, but that would take all day. So that moves me to my second point of how a diet consisting of cheese will affect your body. So cheese is delicious, and it has a lot of advantages to eating it. Cheese is high in protein and low in carbs, lowers your risk for diabetes, and helps to make your bones bigger and stronger, like that. According to Sarah McSpritz's 2023 article, The Health Benefits of Cheese, published by Cabot Creamery, states, cheese is a calcium powerhouse. A 1 ounce serving of hard cheese like cheddar has about 15% of your daily value for calcium, and calcium, especially we need, especially as we age, is critical for bone health. So with advantages comes disadvantages, and cheese definitely has them. Cheese is high in saturated fat and salt. This can lead to heart problems. This can lead to health problems such as high cholesterol and heart disease. According to a 2023 British Heart Foundation article titled 7 Cheese Facts That Will Surprise You, published by BHF, states, cheese is a great source of protein and calcium, but is often high in saturated fat and salt. This means eating too much could lead to high cholesterol and high blood pressure, increasing your risk for cardiovascular disease. So my last point is the history of cheese. So where was the first cheese made? According to ancient records, the first cheese comes from more than 4,000 years ago. According to the 2020 International Dairy Foods Association article titled History of Cheese, published by IDFA, states, no one really knows who made the first cheese. According to ancient legend, it was made accidentally by an Arabian merchant who put his milk supply into a pouch made from a sheep's stomach as he set out on a day's journey across the desert. The rennet in the lining of the pouch, combined with the heat of the sun, caused the milk to separate into a curd and whey. The night he found that the whey satisfied his thirst, and the cheese curd had a delightful flavor which satisfied his hunger. And that is the cheese, the curd, cheese curd, yeah. And when did cheese become popular? So by the time of the Roman Empire, the knowledge of cheese making had become widespread and become common in the Middle East and around Europe. So the timeline surrounding cheese is largely a mystery, but one can infer that it did originate in the area of the Middle East and Europe. So to wrap up this speech, I'll say that cheese is both delicious and interesting to learn about. Cheese can be made all over the world, but the best cheeses are made in Europe and the Middle East, where cheese making first began. Also, eating cheese can have some good effects and some not good effects on your body, so you should watch your cheese consumption if you're a big cheese lover. And lastly, the history of cheese is largely a mystery and is reliant on ancient records to know how cheese began, which is not always the best for information, so we'll never really know the real way that cheese became, but it doesn't really matter because cheese is delicious. That's my speech.